we've had the leader of a small unionist party speak. Now we're going to have a candidate from a small Scottish nationalist party speak. The Scottish National Party in question is called Sovereignty, and I'm delighted that their candidate, Dr. Alan McManus, is with us today. Now, he's going to be a candidate for Sovereignty next year in Cumbernauld and Kilsyth. He's an author, an academic, a carer, a teacher and a law student, and he has forthright views on government overreach of executive power, especially since 2020, which have resulted in increasing limitation of individual rights, especially of freedom of expression and association. Oh, the people over there are so rude. We just don't use rude words. That's our weakness. We don't swear at people. We don't have it in our hearts to use rude words and swear at people. So they just get let rip. But you know what? We've got to take the high ground on that kind of stuff, because goodness me. Anyway, Dr. McManus spoke from our stage last year at our Free Speech Rules rally in George Square, and he spoke against, as I say, the restrictions, the terrible restrictions of Hamza Yousaf's Anti-Free Speech Act, which is still in power. Now, Dr. Alan has written several books on topics of ethical controversy, and he tries, as is very clear, to see both sides and explore common ground. And isn't it wonderful that we do have people in Scotland willing to explore common ground? So ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm welcome to Dr. Alan McManus.
Thank you so much, Alistair, for that very warm welcome. Very similar to the welcome that I had in George Square last year, when I said to people, I'm Roman Catholic, I'm a Scottish nationalist, and I had the greatest welcome. So the message goes out that everyone is welcome here. Everyone is welcome in a democracy to express their views, and that's something that our friends over there, who will be joining later, but not for the same reasons that some of them are here, should learn. Some years ago, I was in Paisley, Gilmore Street, train station on the lower level, and I was using crutches, so I couldn't walk very fast. And a wee boy, he must have been all about 4, ran in from the street and ran across to the lift and pressed the button. And I was with a friend who's a wee bit shy, and I've got a big mouth. And I started shouting, "Son, where's your mummy? Where's your daddy?" And he pressed the button and got into the lift, and the lift went up. And I just lost it, and I'm like, who's with this wee boy? Who's with this wee boy? And my friend's like, Alan, shut up. But I don't shut up. So eventually the ticket seller came out and explained the situation. Fortunately, the lift came down again and the wee boy was still in it. So she grabbed him gently, and it turned out that the mummy was in the shopping centre across the road, and she had said to the wee boy, oh, we can't miss that train. So the wee boy had run across to stop the train for mummy. So she was very relieved that somebody had intervened. The reason why I had the confidence to do that day is called psychological safety. And this is something that's very crucial in safety critical industries like the nuclear industry, the petroleum industry, the aviation, shipping, and it's also recommended by the emergency services. Strangely, it's not supported by the Scottish Government or the Westminster Government or by the British press. The reason why it's not supported by them is, one, because they have a great problem with facts. For example, the fact that there's only really 3 types of human beings: men, women and children. Children can be grouped together. Why is that used? Children can be grouped together because when they're little boys, little girls, their relative strength is not that different. But of course, as they get older, that changes, and that's why we should never have men in women's sports, etc. average are taller, more muscular, stronger than women are. And that's why it's a biological imperative for all men everywhere to protect women and children. And it's a biological imperative for all women everywhere to protect children. So if you're asking men not to protect women and children, and you're asking women not to protect children, you're asking us not to be men and women. Now, as we know, sadly, that's exactly what they're asking us to do. Because the powers that be don't agree with nature. They want to improve it. They want to mess about with it. The British press also don't support facts, and one of the reasons for that is because they're no longer investigative journalists. They gave that up years ago. They're no longer even objective reporters. They're just journalists. They churn out the propaganda that their masters pay them for. They're only following orders. Another reason why these people don't care about women and children is because, well, let's put that in perspective. They don't care about men either, because anyone who's been through the family courts can tell you that. So, for example, in Scotland, on average, university students and staff are about 60% female. And yet, a couple of years ago, the University of Glasgow, for the people that it put through a disciplinary of its academic staff, 72% were men. And that's very common. So the thing is, these people don't like any of us. Why? Because we're human. Does that surprise you? Because didn't you know that humans are the problem on the planet? We're the problem. And they want to get rid of most of us. They want to wipe us out. Net zero is a scam. It's a dangerous scam. It's about monetizing nature. We are the carbon they want to reduce. So the British press call us far right and racist. Let's take those in turn. Well, far right means fascist. And what's a fascist? Fascism is the public-private relationship to the benefit of the elite. Well, I've just summed up all of government policy for the last few decades, haven't I? And as for racist, well, do you know who else they cry racist? Dr. Martin Luther King. So we're in good company, my friends. And do you know why that is? Because like him, we believe that people should be judged by the content of their character and not by the colour of their skin. So the British press are completely wrong when they say that we are embarrassed about the colour of the skin of the 8 paedophiles who were arrested and charged in Glasgow. We don't care about the colour of someone's skin. It's not us who wants two-tier justice. We do recognise that yes, there is a disproportionate amount of sexual violence from recently arrived immigrants. That's true. And that's why we have to state that as a fact and not shy away from that. And that's why we need to stand against judges who take someone's colour of the skin into consideration and say, oh well, maybe you didn't really understand consent. You know, maybe you didn't understand that we have an age of consent here. And that is really racist, because that is saying that only us, white people, have got morals. That's the most racist thing you can say. That is so patronising. Another reason why these people can't face facts is that they don't like statistics. If you look on YouTube, you will find, if you search for gumballs immigration, you will find a 2010 TED talk by an American journalist. Now, it's recently been plagiarised by a female Labour minister, but look at the original one. He proves statistically that the USA does not have room to take in every single person on planet Earth who's earning under $2 a day. It's just not possible. And then he goes on to say, and it's true, that the people who are immigrating are not those who are most poor, because they don't have the wherewithal to do that. They can't pay the exorbitant fees of the smugglers' gangs. So what we're doing by taking in these vigorous young men is we're impoverishing their countries of origin, and that's not good for them. So you could say, yes, but they're not all economic migrants, but even if they were, then as Alistair's pointed out, and as Ken has pointed out, there's other ways to exert international pressure so that we have a more just and equitable international financial system. The Be Kind Brigade are not doing that. I don't think that someone who works in India all day and someone who works in Indiana all day should have a different standard of living. That's just common sense. They're not talking about that, but we are. There's all sorts of pressure that we can put on people. And talking about asylum seekers, one trick that we miss is putting pressure through our churches, through our NGOs, other charities, on countries that have such a poor record of civil liberties that they create asylum seekers. So we could be trying to make life more bearable so that people don't have to flee their countries. The Be Kind Brigade, and I mean the Uni Party, the Tories, Labour, Lib Dems, the Greens, the SNP, because they're all branches of the self-same thing. They are the ones who are supporting foreign wars. They are the ones who are supporting the arms industry. All these people over there have been, well, most of them, unfortunately, have been supporting the line of fire between Russia and Ukraine. What's that got to do with us? Why did millions of our money go to that laundromat north of the Black Sea? That's what I'd like to know. To get sniffed up somebody's nose and buy a few super yachts. That's not justice. How is it helpful to give money to foreigners to blow up other foreigners? How is that kind? As for Be Kind, I have stood in court on behalf of asylum seekers and refugees. I have heard their horrendous stories, some of which at least will be true. I don't need some wealthy white woman from Morningside, some NIMBY from Bear's Den who wears refugees welcome across her t-shirt on her way to a macrame class, whose husband trots off in the Beamer to trade in third world debt. I don't need her telling me to be kind, because she is not going to have to explain to her daughter when she's been sexually molested or raped on the way back from primary school by vigorous young men recently arrived in the country. She is not going to have to explain, oh, don't be racist, darling, because they just don't understand and you must have provoked them. You weren't covered from head to foot in black. You might have been showing your ankles. Martin Luther King had a dream. Let's keep to that dream. It's really embarrassing to stand up for the vulnerable, for women and children. And I intend, as do you I'm sure, to continue to be as embarrassing as we can, to protect women and children, to stop the boats, and to make sure that that lot don't turn Martin Luther's beautiful dream into a nightmare. Thank you.
Fantastic speech from Dr. Alan McManus. Thank you so much for that.